Austin, good afternoon to you. Now, what were the main environmental concerns raised by stakeholders at the event in the Niger Delta?
Yes, part of the recommendations made by the participants include one that is long overdue that most of our waterways have some of these mangrove trees that were destroyed. And of course, you know that due to the oil exploration that has occurred in Niger Delta over years and based on the fact of what has really happened to the pollution exercise carried out by some individuals in attempts to, steal crude oil has depleted the ozone layer and thereby, affected the aquatic lives. And what they are advocating is that there should be replanting of trees, that's that the mangrove trees should be replanted so that we'll be able to have a healthy ecosystem for the people living along those coastal areas. And one of the areas they equally looked at as well is that men, women, young people should be carried along in terms of the sensitization. Because if you watched very well right now, they discovered that, according to what they said, that statistics have shown that the lifespan of those living within the Niger Delta area has reduced because of the carbon emission from these multinational oil companies, and not only that, based on the illegal refineries that is ongoing within the Niger Delta, that based on this carbon monoxide that has been released into the atmosphere, it is affecting individuals, it's affecting large numbers of people within this region. And not only that, too, they equally advocated that hospitals should be built in most of those oil-bearing communities. Take, for instance, you have some communities that has nothing less than maybe about four cooked up, warheads. And some of them, in process of transporting those crude to another place, we discover that some third party will just get tapped with those pipelines and they will just open it up in attempt to, steal those crude oil. And before you know, those whole place has been saturated with, crude oil and destroyed aquatic lives. That the people of those areas should have health centers, because most of the times they suffer skin diseases, they don't have water to drink, they don't have access road, and so on and so forth. So in attempt for them to move from that particular community to the nearest community, you discover a lot has happened in terms of their health wise. And not only that, they're equally calling on the attention of governments that government should, as a matter of urgency, the policy that needed to be implemented since 2008 in terms of the gas flaring should be implemented. And if you watch very well within the Niger Delta space, you discover that most of the times once there is rainfall, what they experience, according to what they said, is acidic rain. And most of this acidic rain, you discover that some of those rural areas, they don't even have pipe-on water to drink. So they get water from the rain. And by the time they drink this water, it becomes so, acidic, and it affects their system. And not only that, you discover, and they equally said that most of individuals have been suffering of maybe cancer, different kinds of cancers. And that is why they want the federal government to implement the stop gas flaring policy within this region. And not only that, they're equally advocating that most of their people at this point in time, they need job. And the youth within this area, they need jobs, and the federal government should provide them with job. That because if the people are well engaged, they will not be involved in this whole exercise of oil theft and so on and so forth.
Okay. All right. Well, a lot of things you've said, Austin, but then I'd like to find out where representatives from oil companies also present at these stakeholders engagement. If they were, what was their response to these recommendations and, of course, other calls around reforms?
Now, the exercise that was carried out in Delta, that's the stakeholders engagement, is basically stakeholders from Rivers, stakeholders from Bayelsa, and stakeholders from Delta. These are just selected states within the Niger Delta that they interfaced with. Of course, the IOCs are not present, but just the stakeholders who are within these perimeters that I just mentioned earlier on. Now, most of those that are supposed to be there for these two-way communications are not there, but they are engaging the stakeholders. One, the aim is to ensure that they're able to prevent violence. Most of the times, those oil companies within those communities, instead of the oil communities to be engaging those to be engaging, sometimes they leave them and go for other persons. And however, this escalates into some, tensions. So the exercise is to enable the organizers to interface with these stakeholders to tell them the essence of preventing crisis, the essence of maintaining peace, and why they are airing whatever they want to air to the government. That it's like a middleman that is coming to interface between the stakeholder and the IOCs, and of course the government as well. So it's a purposeful vehicle that is driving home their message to ensure that there is peace in the Niger Delta, there is security in the Niger Delta, there is infrastructural development in the Niger Delta. Of course, if there is no peace and security and there's no infrastructural development within these areas, of course, it will be very difficult for the IOCs and those involved in exploring these mineral resources to carry out their activities. Hence, they are discussing with these stakeholders so that they'll be able to have this purposeful economic drive for the people of the Niger Delta as well and the government, so that from there, about 80% of Nigeria resources are coming from the Niger Delta. And if anything happens to this process of getting these resources to the federal government that is used to service the nation, of course, definitely it will be very difficult for the federal government and every other agency within government, both from the federal government and to the local government, to survive. So hence, this interface to them is very, very important to enable them have this means and process of ensuring that they have a conducive atmosphere for these IOCs to strive. And while they are exploring their activity, they should equally not forget the fact that the people at the grassroots level, where they are taking these natural resources from, that they equally need their infrastructural presence. They equally need that they need to provide these infrastructural activities for them to survive in terms of health, in terms of education, in terms of roads, in terms of otherwise. But primarily, that federal government should implement the 2008 policy of gas flaring for the sake of the health of the people in the Niger Delta.
All right. Thank you so much, Amos Nazu, for sharing this with us.